The reason we always feel insecure is because we compare what we cannot see clearly with what others show us. Steve Furtick. We see them clearly, their achievements, their appearance, their confidence, those carefully selected radiant moments. As for ourselves, we only perceive through layers of fog, of doubt, of the fear of being exposed, of thoughts that have not yet taken shape. That comparison was never fair to begin with. We place our unfinished inner selves beside the polished surface of others. It is a contrast between the unclear and the clear, between our private shadows and their stage lights. We tend to exaggerate what we do not fully grasp. When we do not understand ourselves completely, we easily assume we are lacking. When we view others from the outside, we easily imagine they are whole. This gap in perception nurtures self-doubt, like a seed watered by illusion. But the truth is, everyone carries unseen dark corners, unanswered questions, and insecurities hidden with skill. No one is truly as clear as they appear. Instead of comparing, we observe. Instead of judging, we understand. We learn to look at ourselves with patience, like viewing a painting still in progress rather than a flawed masterpiece. And as we gradually illuminate ourselves, layer by layer, the fog lifts, and we are no longer haunted by the gaze of others. True confidence then arises not from being better than anyone, but from finally seeing ourselves clearly. I will not give up, because even when I fail, I will have learned a valuable lesson, so everything will balance out for me. There is a quiet but enduring kind of strength when a person no longer sees failure as a crack, but as a grain in the wood, each mark telling a story of growth. When you declare you will not give up, you are shifting your mind from a win or lose mindset to a deeper kind of balance. In that space, absolute defeat no longer exists, because every stumble leaves behind a piece of knowledge, a fragment of self-understanding that success alone sometimes cannot provide. It is like an inner scale that always self-adjusts. If life takes away the result, it returns experience. If it closes one door, it compels you to notice paths you had never seen before. And it is this belief that eases fear, not because you are certain of victory, but because you know you will never walk away empty-handed. No longer obsessed with immediate results, no rushing, no despair, just steadfast like water flowing over stone. It may be slow, but it never stops. And then, almost inevitably, those who never give up are the ones who finally reach what they seek. Not because they avoided failure, but because they turned every failure into part of the victory. I don't try to jump better than anyone else. I only try to jump better than myself. Arianna Huffington. When you stop directing your gaze outward to measure yourself against others, and instead turn inward to converse with yourself, you step out of the invisible trap of comparison. Others may cast a large shadow, but that shadow shifts with the light. You alone are the one constant presence through every day. Comparing yourself to them easily breeds a sense of lack. Comparing yourself to who you were yesterday lets you begin to see progress. That journey is like a mountain climber who does not glance at anyone else's summit, but focuses on each step along their own slope. Every time you jump a little better, higher, steadier, more precise, you redefine your own limits. And the strange thing is, when you stop obsessing over winning or losing, you travel much farther, because the energy once wasted on comparison is now poured entirely into training and understanding yourself. You are no longer bound by the crowd's standards, nor shaken by the success or failure of others. Every small step forward carries meaning. And over time, you realize the only competition that truly matters is not with the world, but with your former self. When you triumph over that, every other peak becomes merely a consequence. If you don't dare to risk anything, you will encounter even greater risks. Jong. Absolute safety is often nothing more than an illusion built from fear. When you try to avoid every risk, you unintentionally freeze yourself in a familiar zone where there are no mistakes, but also no growth. And over time, that safety begins to rot from within, like a windowless room, no breeze, no light, and eventually no life left at all. People often fear immediate loss and forget the true cost of long-term stagnation. Not daring to take risks means missing the chance to learn, experience, and adapt the very things that become real armor against an uncertain future. When the world changes, and you do not, the real danger is not failure, but becoming outdated and fragile in the face of shifts you never prepared for. Taking risks is not reckless action, but a conscious investment in growth. It is like stepping out of the shallows to learn to swim. You may swallow a few mouthfuls of water, but that very process teaches you how to stay afloat. And once you know how to swim, the ocean is no longer a threat, it becomes a realm of freedom. It is not something to avoid, but something to choose wisely. Because in the end, the greatest risk is not failing when you try, but never daring to try and discover who you can become. The things you do make a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. Jane Goodall. Life is not defined by what we think, but by what we repeat every day. Every action, no matter how small, is like a drop of ink falling into water. At first it seems to vanish, but over time it colors an entire region. It is the things we do that create the difference, and at the same time you confront a deeper truth. You cannot live unconsciously and still hope for a meaningful life. The question is not whether you create influence, but in which direction you are creating it. Every choice is a silent declaration of the person you want to become. You choose discipline or procrastination, kindness or indifference, moving forward or standing still. All of it accumulates, forming the fingerprint of your psyche on this life. No action is entirely neutral. Even inaction is a choice, and it leaves its mark. This hands you a very real power, the power to shape your own difference. You do not need to do grand things immediately, but you do need the awareness that every action quietly steers your future. Like walking through fog, you cannot see the entire path, yet each step still decides where you will arrive. And when you live with that awareness, you begin to act with intention. No longer simply passing the time, but choosing clearly, what do I want to leave behind? The difference stops being random and becomes a work you patiently craft action by action, day by day. I choose to turn the rest of my life into the best part of my life. Louise Hay. When you declare that you will turn the rest of your life into its best chapter, you sever the chains that bind you to the past as a verdict and transform it into data for learning instead of a trap. Many people live as if the life ahead is merely a continuation of what has already happened. You do the opposite. You turn the present into a pivot point where the future is no longer dictated by what has passed. It is like reclaiming the steering wheel after drifting for too long. The road ahead may still be bumpy, but at least the direction is now yours to choose. Best does not mean perfect. It means living with awareness, knowing what you are doing and why, and embracing both joy and difficulty as part of the journey. It is when you stop waiting for life to become easier and instead become stronger and clearer in the way you live. You no longer wait for a single breakthrough to change everything. Instead, you build day by day, like laying bricks. A more disciplined morning, a firmer decision, a moment you refuse to quit when things get hard, those small things, repeated long enough, will reshape your entire life. And then you realize that the best part of life is not some distant destination, but a way of living that begins right now. It lives in how you face the present, how you treat yourself, and how you keep moving forward even when you cannot yet see the whole path. When you choose this, you are not only changing the future, you are changing who you are in every single moment. To become irreplaceable, one must always be different. Coco Chanel. Being different is not about forcing yourself to be strange, but about the process of being utterly honest with your own nature. Many believe that to be irreplaceable, they must stand out at any cost, louder, more unusual, even opposing the crowd just to be noticed. But that kind of difference is like a bright coat of paint on the surface, eye-catching, yet it fades easily. True difference unfolds more quietly. It arises from knowing exactly who you are, what you value, and remaining steadfast in that even when no one is watching. When you work in your own way, think with your own depth, and live by your own values, you begin to create a fingerprint that cannot be copied. Not because you tried to be different, but because no one else shares your exact experiences, perspectives, or way of connecting the world. We often seek safety in sameness, yet that very sameness makes us easily replaceable. When you only repeat what already exists, you become a version that can be swapped out. But when you dare to develop your own identity, even if it feels slower or harder at first, you build a value no one else can replicate. The less you strain to be different in a forced way, the more naturally different you become. When you live true to yourself, uniqueness is no longer the goal, it is simply the result. And at that point, you become not only hard to replace in the eyes of others, but truly irreplaceable in your own life. Anything can make me stop, observe, reflect, and sometimes learn something from it. When you say that anything can stop you, make you look, reflect, and sometimes teach you something, you are no longer merely passing through life, you are truly living inside it. Most people glide past reality like hurried travelers, eyes fixed only on the destination and missing the entire journey. You do the opposite. You turn every ordinary moment into a doorway of awareness. It is as if you carry a special lens through which everything, however small or ordinary, can become a lesson. A brief conversation, a fleeting glance, a minor failure, or even a moment of silence, all of it holds information if you slow down enough to see and go deep enough to understand. Then the world is no longer a string of disconnected events, but a living system of meaning unfolding right before your eyes. You do not need to wait for dramatic events to grow. You learn from the smallest things, and that quiet accumulation creates a depth others rarely reach. Like water dripping drop by drop onto stone, not loud, yet over time, it reshapes everything. Not only do you learn, you become more perceptive, more refined, and more deeply connected to life itself. Each day stops being a repeated copy and becomes an open space where anything can turn into a piece that helps you understand the world and yourself a little better. Doubt is the killer. You just need to know who you are and what you stand for. Jennifer Lopez. Doubt rarely arrives as a heavy blow. It slips in quietly, like a steady drip of water wearing away at your willpower until it erodes belief itself. It does not kill you at once, but slowly destroys your ability to act, leaving you hesitating and shrinking before the world even has a chance to test you. And the most dangerous part is that doubt often wears the mask of reason, making you believe you are simply being careful when in truth you are limiting yourself. When you do not know who you are, your mind constantly seeks confirmation from the outside. You become easily swayed by other people's opinions and pulled into standards that are not your own. But when you understand yourself clearly, knowing what you believe and what you pursue, you create an inner axis of stability. That is the anchor that keeps you steady, even when the noise around you grows loud. Knowing who you are is not a slogan, but a process of honest self-confrontation. Strengths, weaknesses, values, limits. And knowing what you stand for is when you begin to live consistently with those things, not perfectly, but clearly. When that clarity grows strong enough, doubt may still appear, but it no longer holds the power to control you. Then you act not because you are certain of success, but because you are certain of yourself. And in a world full of change, that inner certainty becomes the shield that protects you from being killed by your own thoughts. Some people want it to happen, some people wish it would happen, and others make it happen. Michael Jordan. Some stand on the sidelines watching, some dream, and some step forward. Those who want usually stop at awareness. They see something good and worthwhile, but the desire flashes like a spark and dies out, never strong enough to ignite action. Those who wish go a little further. They nurture the image in their minds and imagine a different future, yet they remain trapped in the gap between dream and reality. They live in possibility but lack the force to turn it into fact. But those who make it happen possess a very different mindset. They do not see the gap as a reason to stop, but as space for action. They understand that desire is worthless unless it is transformed into concrete steps. For them, emotion is only the starting point. Discipline is the bridge. They accept imperfection, they accept beginning before they feel ready, and that very acceptance creates real momentum. The difference does not lie in talent or opportunity, but in how each person handles their intentions. A single thought can remain an illusion or become a plan depending on whether you take action. And when you choose to act, Even in small ways, you step out of the crowd of those who only want and wish and become the one person truly shaping your own life. In the end, the world is not changed by what is hoped for, but by what is done. And the line between the two is a simple decision. Will you only think about it, or will you start doing something today?